This video is solving proportions using cross multiplication. So you'll notice right away in this pair of equivalent fractions, we don't know what x is, but we know that these two fractions are equal, but there's not a fraction that we can simplify. 8/13 is already in simplest form. To solve this, we're going to find a common denominator, and to do that, we're going to multiply our denominators, because when we're comparing or adding or anything with two fractions, we can always multiply the denominators together to find a common denominator. It may not always be the simplest common denominator or the least common denominator, but it will always work. So I'm going to multiply the left fraction by 6/6, the right one by 13/13. So the left one, I'll have a new numerator of 48, and the denominator will be 78. And the right one will be 13x over 78 as well. Now you'll notice on here, we don't really care about the denominators now because they're the same. So really all I care about is the 48 equals 13x. And now I need to solve for this equation. I'm going to divide by 13. That leaves that as a 1 and divide by 13 on this side. And then this side is 48 over 13, so x equals 48 over 13, and it says round your answer to the nearest tenth, so they want us to actually divide this out, and that's going to be what, 339, and this is going to be a 9, so we're going to actually have to give it a decimal and a 0, and we're going to have to keep going. 13 goes into 90, let's say, I don't know, 7 times? 21, up, that's going to be too much. It's going to be 6 times. So 13 times 6 is 78. We know that already. And we've got a leftover of 12. We are going to need to work that out. 120, this is definitely going to be a 9, I think. 27, so that's going to be 17. Yep, 117. And we don't really care beyond this because it says rounded to the nearest tenth, so we only need to go to the hundredths place. This 9 is going to round this up to a 7, so we're going to have 3 7/10. Now you might have noticed something on here that we actually did a lot more work than we really needed to do. Notice we didn't ever really need to multiply the denominators because we know the denominators are always going to be the same here. They're going to be a common denominator. So what we can do instead is we can do what's called cross multiplication, and we could have just multiplied the 6 times the 8, which is really what we did right here, and that would have given us the 48. And then we could have also multiplied the 13 times the x, which is really what we did, and that gives us the 13x. And then that is what the equation that we solved for. That is what's called cross multiplication. We just left out doing the common denominator because we knew it was going to be the same and it was not going to be helpful to solving for x. And in this example, if we were to just multiply the denominators, it would be 3u. Both sides of this equation would have a denominator of 3u. But since those are the same, that's not really important to us. We are going to care about the numerators. So instead of actually writing all that out and multiplying out the denominators, I'm just going to use cross multiplication. So I'm going to multiply the 3 times the 13, that's 39, and I'm going to multiply the u times the 11, which is 11u. And now, knowing that my denominators would both be 3u, I can just ignore them and I can solve this equation. So I'm going to divide by 11. That leaves me with 1u on that side, divide by 11 on this side. So u equals 39 over 11, but again, we want to round this to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to have to do some division. I'll go ahead and put a decimal point and give myself a 0 there. So 3 times 11 is 33. 11 goes into 65 times. And then 11 goes into 54 times. And I don't really care that there's a remainder left over here because the hundredths place is this 4 in the hundredths place tells me that the 5 is not going to round up, so my answer is 3 5/10. This example, I'm going to do the same thing. I don't care that my denominator is going to be 17 times y, so I'm just going to use cross multiplication. Y times 7 is 7y. 17 times 4, I don't know what 17 times 4 is. Let's work that out. 28, that'll be 68. So to solve this, now I'm going to divide by 7. That leaves me with 1y. Divide by 7 on the right. So y equals 68 over 7. We're going to have to divide this out because we want to the nearest tenth again. 7 goes into 68 9 times. 7 goes into 50 7 times. And 7 goes into a 10 only one time. So that's not going to be enough to round the 7 up, so it's going to be 9 7/10. Here's one last example. Cross multiplication, we're going to have 8 times y, which is 8y, and 7 times 5, which is 35. So y will be equal to 35 over 8. We divided by 8 on both sides. And now we're going to round to the nearest tenth, so 35 divided by 8. 8 goes into 35 4 times. 8 goes into 30 3 times. And then 8 goes into 60 7 times. So the 7 will bump up this 3, so we'll have 4 4/10.